Hi there, guys. Hey, please ignore the radiant light that is coming off of my window onto my clothes, which makes me look angelic in nature. I thought I'd come up with a real quick video and talk here, sort of in more general terms about tactics. I know that when it comes to football manager topics, tactics are kind of the thing that makes the world go round. Every time you have a tactical video, you get 10 times the views of any other video topic that you have. Seems that people are insatiable, but it's one of those things that kind of makes me scratch my head. And the reason why is because tactics are not really that difficult. I'll show you why. So in Football Manager, as you already know, there are things you can do to make tactics simply, right? You can create a new tactic here. It'll tell you what your system manager actually thinks that you're good at. There are some of these that you want to do. Some of these you probably don't, right? If you try to park the bus, for example, and not put any sort of attacking players forward, you might have a problem because at some point in time you do have to win the game instead of always playing not to lose. If you're up against a good competition, all they have to do is get somebody in behind your defenders because of a mistake or because of a missed offside call or whatever, and next thing you know, you're down, and then you have a team that has absolutely no way to attack or to win. It's one of the reasons, too, why counterattack systems sometimes will have a very difficult job sitting back and then waiting to try to attack when the time is right. I would argue is not quite as good as, trying to dictate play, trying to dominate possession, trying to get the ball forward, trying to do stuff like that, right? I mean, but your mileage may vary, right? You might come up with a whole bunch of different stuff, depending upon what your team is like and depending on what you've experienced, right? What I like to do here is you pick one of these, okay, we want to do a tiki-taka, and then you can take what the game gives you in terms of, what sort of game you would expect to have from a tiki-taka. And then you can go and you can start messing around with this, and you can say, okay, well, maybe we don't want, a high press, maybe we want a lower press or something like that. Maybe we don't necessarily want a sweeper keeper, we want a goalkeeper that's back. We want to hold the line a little bit back further, and then try to figure out a way to make sure that our back line is lining up with our midfield. One of the problems I've had is I've played around with tactics in the back is not fully understanding how all of these things work together. One thing that's important to note is that if you're going to have a higher defensive line, you got to have a keeper who is going to be willing to come up here to this top area, right? It's pretty cool. If you go through and if you search through all of these different things, you'll get an idea of how this system works, right? Here's the park the bus. You can see my problem with the park the bus is that you're not really trying to push the ball forward, right? I mean, if you have no way of winning, maybe, we should park the bus if we're in the 6th division and they are Manchester United, right? Maybe we should do what we can to make it not so embarrassing. Even here, though, if they're very, very good, they're not going to hold the ball here in this half field, situation. Instead, they will maybe let you have the ball, win the ball off of you, and try to hit you in transition, which if your squad is really poor, you won't be able to defend against, right? Same thing here with, sort of counter-attacking play where, it's good if you can win the ball. If you can't win the ball, or if your players are not fast enough to do this, not going to work so well, right? So it depends. It depends upon, exactly what type of game you want to play and how you want to set this up and your formation and stuff like that. The thing that I have set up, is calling it custom wing play, which is funny because we really are not playing sort of a wing system. I only have wingers here mostly for defensive purposes and to sort of plug in gaps where they exist, right? As I've said before, the whole idea behind this tactic really is to try to play with 3 at the back, but maintain anyway a very strong defensive line. And so you'll see things like I was just alluding to, the much higher defensive line that we have here. That is designed, as I understand it, I might be wrong. Tell me if you think I'm wrong, because I'd love to learn more. My understanding is that this much higher defensive line is very helpful because it makes sure that your defenders back here are linking up well with the players in front of you, right? That's the sort of basic thing that's helpful to understand. So you could take any of those preset tactics that we looked at, and you could make that one change to any of them to make sure that you get your back line hooked up great with the players who are up here, and to try your hardest to make sure the players are actually passing the ball. My pet peeve, as I've gone over in dozens, if not hundreds of videos, is when, someone like Wu Mengshi has the ball, and he decides to kick it forward to Nene, because of reasons, right? We don't want to do that. We want to control the ball. We want to control the tempo. We want to control possession. We want to move it forward slowly. We don't just want to lump the ball forward and kind of hope for the best, because usually we're going to lose possession, right? Again, with that higher defensive line, you want to have a sweeper keeper and not just a goalkeeper. And the reason why is because, and we'll look at the sweeper keeper. This will show us the reason why. The reason why is because you need a keeper who can come out when the high defense that you have is beaten. Right? If you have a low defense, it's kind of pointless to have the sweeper keeper, especially if you have 4 defenders back here. If you have 2 central and then the 2 fullbacks, right? There's no real sense in having a keeper come out like that. Anyway, that's the sort of thing that you can sort of think about, right? I designed this formation in part to try to help with defending, knowing that we have a club that is not blessed with very good defenders. We had what's his name, Kader Bamba, who I just loaned out a little while ago. I mean, I suppose he's pretty good, right? But overall, the idea here is to try to have guys who are going to be able to come back and help, right? And so this guy here, the defensive midfielder, also tries to play that role. He didn't play it very well, I would argue, in the last match, right? But the idea behind Chen Tongju is that he's going to come back and he's going to help buttress the defense by adding in a 4th defender when necessary, right? And he's not going to spend all of his time up here. The truth is that in my experience with this squad, we've had a lot of times where the guy in this role spends more time up here than he really should and starts taking wild shots from like way back here. So whatever, I'm not sure what he's doing, right? Wingbacks on the side, again, the idea behind this, as you can see here from the illustration, the idea behind this is more of sort of a role to try to get the ball back when it comes down one or the other wing to try to start a counterattack, right? That's the idea behind it, and that's the thing that we're thinking about. This is the thing that you want to sort of keep in mind. You always need, no matter what kind of formation you have to think about 2 things. You have to think about what we're going to do with the midfield, and you have to think about what we're going to do on the flanks, right? If we decide that we're going to have a whole bunch of guys here in the midfield and we're going to ignore the wings, then you're going to be beaten to pieces by teams who have good wingers, right? They'll just come down the side on the wing and they'll have all day and they'll have free reign. And if your back defenders try to go over to cover them, or if your defensive midfielder tries to come over to help or whatever, they're going to wind up with guys wide open in the middle. You won't be able to stop it, right? This goes back again to sort of like the meta game, the game that's kind of behind the game, right? But the point behind this, though, is that none of this is really that complicated, right? I know that everybody likes to look at tactical videos and wants to find out like the ultimate secret behind football tactics. There is no secret behind Football Manager tactics. There really isn't. It sort of makes sense, and you try stuff and you see if it works or if it doesn't, right? Sometimes your players don't do what you tell them to, right? It might not be your tactic that's the problem. It might be your players, right? So, for example, I tell them we want much shorter passing. The reason why is because we are better than the other teams in the league. We have better players. We should hold on to the ball instead of trying these, long passes that are, maybe have like a 2% chance of doing anything, right? Instead, we should work the ball up slowly and take advantage of the fact that we are the best team every single match. But as we just saw in this morning's match, that frequently does not happen. The players do not do this. This is not because the tactic is set up wrong. This is because the players are not good or they don't understand the tactics. We have high tactical familiarity, but maybe we don't have skilled players like we should. Maybe some of these defenders aren't that good. I don't know. Maybe Feng Xiaochi, who we just brought on, isn't that good. Now he's a regular starter, so maybe he is, But that's the sort of thing you have to think about if you are playing in Football Manager. You want to look for guys like Wu Mengchi and be like, might not have the required ability or potential. This 26-year-old player who's probably not going to improve, right? Maybe we should have, some younger center back start in his place. Now, I'm not going to play around with that too much, to be honest with you. I mean, I've gotten rid of more center backs than, this season than I know what to do with, right? Eventually, we will look at it after these 4 final matches of the season. We'll start going through here. We'll see if we can find any young players who, really might be worth bringing up. And if not, if we can't find anybody, then we go back out into the scouting world and look for Taiwanese players we can bring in, because no matter how good Diono is, where is he from? Senegal. No matter how good he is, I'm not going to bring him in on the team because I'm not going to get rid of any of the foreigners that we have. Anyway, that's the thing to keep in mind, though. If you're having problems with your tactic and something's not working, You do want to look at the tactics and make sure that it makes sense, right? We want to make sure we don't have like a playmaker here, a playmaker there, and the guys don't know what to do. We want to make sure that we don't have every player on attacking or every player on defending. We want to make sure that we're not, for some stupid reason, deciding to park the bus when we don't have to. I mean, it's pointless. You might want to look at the mentality. Remember that your mentality tells you more about the risks that your players are going to take in attacking with the ball than anything else, right? So if they're doing silly things with the ball and you're giving up possession easily, you might want to move this over to balance. It might be a little bit better for you. You might be able to, sacrifice maybe a little bit of that extra surprising oomph on offense, but just dominate the match and sort of squeeze everything you can out of it instead. Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends upon what you're looking at and what your experience is. But the big thing to remember is that there is no magic tactic, right? There is no magic tactic that's going to make everything work. Second thing to remember is that if things are not going well with your players in the tactic, it might actually be your players that are the problem, right? Take a look and figure out what's going on and decide if you really need to hold on to, Wu Mengchi, or if you have maybe somebody else. I don't know. What is Li Wencheng? Is this guy any good? 19 years old? Yeah, he's a young prospect and he's not up to the level yet, but maybe we could play him instead, right? That's the sort of thing you got to figure out. So, okay, we make that change, right? And then Li Wencheng, who has not played at this level, will get his first experience tomorrow. So there you go. Anyway, a couple things for you to think about. Tactics are fun, but tactics are not everything. And as always, I will talk with you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.